Hello everyone. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this joint Point Beyond and Nintex webinar. My name is Brian Ambrose. I'm from Nintex. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Nintex partner Point Beyond, the UK leading SharePoint business application specialist. Firstly today, I would like to share with our agenda for this 45-minute webinar. We will start with a brief introduction to Nintex and Point Beyond. Point Beyond will then talk about the solution and show you a demo. We will then summarize the key benefits of this approach to delivering the business application. And lastly, you get a more welcome to ask any question if you have any. So, I will quickly tell you about Nintex. Nintex is a SharePoint ISV offering a number of solutions on the top of SharePoint, which allow people to implement workflows in SharePoint using drag and drop functionality and a visual approach. At Nintex we are saying workflow for everyone, and we mean it because everyone can make workflows in SharePoint with Nintex too. We at Nintex are always excited to share examples of the real-world customer application. So today's live demo is a document management solution, and it's an excellent example of Nintex Workflow 2010 and the SharePoint in action. Point Beyond focusing on using SharePoint as the platform for delivering business application without need for custom code. And here Nintex Workflow 2010 underpins that approach. So now I would like to hand over to Aaron, the Manager and Director from Point Beyond, and have a good webinar.
So Brian, thank you very much for that, and good morning everybody who's joining on the webinar. My name is Ian Woodgate. I'm the Managing Director of Point Beyond, the UK's leading SharePoint business application specialist. I'm going to very quickly introduce us. We're a Microsoft Gold partner with 6 competencies, and we work extensively with Nintex as well as selected other partners. So what I'm going to talk about today is actually using SharePoint and Nintex as a set of tools to deliver business applications. And we're going to, in doing that, we're going to look at how we can leverage the tools to build applications quickly and without writing custom code. So I wanted to start by just looking at the options that you have generally when you want to build a solution for an organization, such as document control or a Transmittals type solution. And that really comes down to 3 options. You can code your own, which is an expensive, quite high risk approach that leaves you with a solution that can be expensive and hard to support and maintain. You can go out and buy a product, and there certainly are products available that are very capable of doing things such as Transmittals and document control. They tend to be very expensive. To give an idea of how expensive, the solution that we're going to look at today, we considered purchasing an off-the-shelf solution, which was actually more expensive, the annual maintenance of which was more expensive than the entire cost of the solution that we were able to deliver with Nintex and SharePoint. The other thing with products to be mindful of is they do what they do. If you've got some requirement that the product doesn't actually do out of the box, you kind of have to go back to a vendor and get to customization done, and whatever price they charge you, that's kind of what you have to pay. And we kind of refer to that as a vendor lock-in. So you are locked into for one very specific vendor, and that carries some inherent risk. The last option, and the option that we're focusing on today, is using off-the-shelf tools such as SharePoint 2010, InfoPath Forms, Nintex Workflows to create your own solution quickly and easily. And that gives you a highly configurable and flexible solution that's easy for you to maintain and support yourselves. It's relatively inexpensive. And also it gives you a set of tools that you can actually start to use across your business generally. So you may start with document management and document control and Transmittals, but leverage that platform, leverage that investment across a whole raft of business scenarios. So what I'm going to do next is move on and talk a little bit about the requirements that we faced when we took this approach and delivered a solution for one of our customers called GBM Minerals Engineering Consultants. One of the things I want to emphasize, though, is that I'm showing you an approach to document control and Transmittals that uses Nintex and SharePoint. This is not a finished shrink-wrap product. Every organization works in a different way and has different requirements. And the beauty of our approach is that you're able to customize it and tailor it to work the way that you want to work, and to do that quickly and easily and without writing custom code. So the kind of challenges that we faced at GBM, I've summarized on this slide here. They needed to put proper control around documents that they were working on. Everything was project-based. They're sharing their documents with their customers by email, and all the inherent problems of sending large files, security, people not receiving emails in remote locations, etc., etc. So they needed a controlled document repository. They wanted a client-facing extranet so that their clients were able to actually sign in and see what documents are being transmitted to them for themselves. They wanted proper approval and workflow controls so that when a document's finished, they know that it's been approved and it goes through an appropriate multi-stage approval process. And similarly, when a transmittal is created, they wanted to be certain that the transmittal is approved by the appropriate people before the documents are published out to the clients. And then they had some other kind of fairly standard requirements around things like document numbering and classification, effective search engine, being able to manage correspondence both to and from their customers, and we shall see this in the demo. And they also needed something that they could effectively rubber stamp across multiple projects for multiple different clients. So that at a very high level was the requirements in this particular scenario. When it came to delivering the solution, several different options were considered. The first one was, a lot of people say, well, this is primarily workflow type application, why can't we do SharePoint Design? SharePoint Design does workflow. But what really became apparent is that the functionality and the power of SharePoint Design and workflows, as anyone who's tried it will tell you, is really quite limited, and unless you want to do something very simple, it's not going to have the capabilities that you need. The second option we looked at, as I've already mentioned, was actually going out and purchasing an off-the-shelf solution. And there were several available there, and they were very expensive, and they kind of did what they did. The third option was custom code. That potentially leads to quite an expensive, risky software delivery project that leaves you with a solution that you have to support and maintain going forwards. And the last option was to leverage Nintex Workflow 2010 and SharePoint 2010, and to actually use that tool set to build the solution without writing any custom code. And once we start looking at Nintex Workflow 2010 with GBM, it really became apparent quite quickly that it was a no-brainer. And I think the engineering mindset of the GBM team helped as well. And what we found is they really got to Nintex very quickly and were able to contribute a lot towards the solution and its delivery. So just before we move on to talking about the demo and looking at the demo, I'm just going to briefly touch on the approach that was taken to building the solution we're going to see. So Nintex and SharePoint, as I've already mentioned, very agile approach. Nintex lends itself very well to actually just trying things out, looking at them and incrementally improving them. There was no custom code across this whole solution, so everything you're going to see in the demo is out of the box and configuration. The end users were very engaged. They were very keen to give their feedback and work collaboratively with ourselves, so that the solution was able to emerge very quickly. And GBM were very involved in it and took a lot of ownership of the solution. So coming on to the demo now, there's two scenarios that I'm really going to demonstrate, and I've just put a couple of slides together to demonstrate what those scenarios are. The first one is we've got people working on documents internally on an intranet type site, and they want to submit their documents for approval so that they are ready to subsequently be transmitted to a client. Okay, and that workflow is a multi-stage, multi-user approval process, and we'll take a look at that in a second. Once a document has been approved, it then becomes available for transmittal, and we also keep a history of the document as well, and the actions that have occurred on the document, and we'll take a quick look at that as well. The second step that I'm going to demonstrate is a more complex scenario, and that's the scenario of a user actually going in and creating a transmittal. So just to explain, if anyone's not aware, a transmittal is a version-controlled set of documents that's transmitted as a unit to a customer or to a client. So the way this works is as follows. We have our documents that are approved, ready for picking in a pick list. The person creating the transmittal goes in and picks the documents that they wish to transmit, and then they submit that for transmittal. There's another approval process which sends out emails and also sends the transmittal as a whole for approval by the appropriate people. Once that is done and the set of documents has been approved, the workflow copies the documents to the extranet automatically so that they're visible by the end client, and it also sends out a customized email to the end client providing links to the documents within the extranet, and we shall see all of this in a second. So I'm going to move on to a demo now, and I'm going to demonstrate those two high-level concepts and touch on a few of the other things shown here, such as document numbering and tracking of the documents that you'll see as we go through the demo. So let me just switch over to the demo. Okay. So we're going to start off on the intranet side, and this is an anonymized version, basically, of the GBM solution that we're looking at today. So you can see I've got a simple kind of intranet site homepage for a particular project. This project being Dorset Goldmine, normal kind of stuff. We can see some recent transmittals. There's a calendar. There's some pictures and images and a map, etc., etc. So normal SharePoint type functionality here. So what I'm going to show first of all is how we would create a document and then submit it for approval. So I'm going to go into one of our document libraries, which is the controlled document library. And you can see here we've got quite a few documents with quite a lot of metadata at various stages of version and approval. The first thing I'm going to show is how you create a document from a template, and we have a variety of templates set up so that users are able to go in here and create a new document. And you can have a number of template documents available to make it very easy for people to create a new one if they need to. Once you've created a document and you've worked on it, the next thing to do is to submit it for approval. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that now, taking this bottom document, System Schematic. So it's as simple as clicking on the context menu, and you can see we've got an option here which is Submit for Approval. So when the user is happy with their document, they click upon that, and that then fires up our approval screen. And this is a three-stage approval. We've got a checker, an approver, and a document controller. For the purpose of the demo, it's all set to myself, the administrator. Obviously, on the real system, those will be different people. What I want to do now is just go ahead and show you the workflow process that actually runs, and this workflow is being configured in Nintex. So one of the great things about Nintex when you come to build your workflow is you do it very visually by simply dragging and dropping components onto your page. So I'll just go ahead and expand the workflow that we see at the bottom here, and you can see that there's various things going on, and this was all built visually by just dragging and dropping these units. So as the workflow progresses, we make some changes to the document. We've got our first approval by the checker, who can either decline or approve. We then come down, we've then got our second approver, who's called the approver, and lastly we've got a document controller. And you can see we're doing things like sending notifications and making updates to our document as we go, setting an approval status down here. So it's all very quick and very easy. It's very visual in terms of the way the workflow actually works. So when the user's happy with their document, they just start the approval workflow by clicking on the Start button. That starts the workflow. You can see I've already set an email has already been received by me. I can just open that, and that just tells me that my following item requires my approval. If I approve that, it will then go on to the next level and the next approver. Okay, another thing that happens once our document has been approved is it will appear in our document history library. It keeps a track of all the documents, and also this will actually record when a document is transmitted. It also records the transmittals in which a document participates. And lastly, we've got the transmittals library, which we'll come back to in a second actually, and this one shows how documents are transmitted. So that brings me quite nicely on actually to doing a transmittal. So we've created our documents, we've submitted them for approval. We're happy now that we want to submit our documents for we want to transmit our documents out to our client. So the way that's done is, first of all, we have to select the documents that we want to transmit, and we do that by using this view called the pick list. So I can come into this pick list. I can change my view to a transmittal view, which is just easier to use, and we can pick the documents here that we actually want to transmit. And I should emphasize again that all of these columns and views are all configurable because different organizations work in different ways. So let's say we have 3 documents that we want to transmit. We can select those like that. So now we're ready to actually go ahead and create our transmittal. So I shall do that now by clicking onto the transmittal register. Okay. So you can see I've got some transmittals that I created here previously, and you'll notice they have numbers. These numbers are also automatically generated by our workflow. So we're going to go ahead and create a new one now. And you can see that it's identified the 3 documents that we picked earlier for transmittal, and it's asking us for additional information. Again, for this demo, I'm just going to put myself in here. I'm submitting who I'm actually transmitting this document, this transmittal set to. Give myself the approval, and then we're saying some note. For example. And now when we're happy with that, we can now send that transmittal off. Okay, so that's now created that transmitter. We should see some emails coming through shortly. Here we go. So what the Nintex Workflow has done behind the scenes is it's created this email for me saying that there's a transmitter requiring approval. I've got the number of the transmittal here and a link to it. I've got a click here to approve or reject. And if I scroll down, you can see we've pulled in some other data about the project as well. So we've created automatic generated these nicely formatted emails. And we've also got at the bottom here, I've got a link to the actual documents within the transmittal themselves. Okay. So I'll go ahead now and approve that. So I'll just click on the link to approve. Incidentally, you can also configure Nintex to allow you to approve by just replying to these emails with the word approve, and that's quite a popular feature as well. We find a lot of people like that. But for now, I'll click back to the site. And we're going to approve. You can see on this approval screen, I get, as well as the approval reject, I get to see some information about the document that's being approved. I can actually even go in and see my workflow status if I want to. And that will show me how far we've got down through our workflow. Obviously the green ones have been completed. So we'll go back. Now I'm going to approve. Okay. So that workflow has now been approved. The transmittal has now been completed. If I go back to my transmittal register, I can now see this bottom one is my new transmittal. So the other thing that the workflow does at this stage is it actually takes a copy of those documents and it copies them across to the client-facing extranet. So let's go ahead and have a look at that now, and I'll just flick over to this tab. So this is the extranet. So this would be seen by this is the site the clients can log into themselves. And so lastly, I'll click onto the library here, and you can see at the bottom here we've got 3 new documents at 11:19 AM. These are the 3 documents that have just been transmitted in transmittal number 141, and you can see those over here. So those 3 documents have been copied over to the extra and are now available for the client to log in and see. The last thing that the workflow does is it actually builds an email and sends that directly to the client with those links to those documents. So we should be able to go ahead and see that now. If I just go in here, you can see this new email here. So this email has been sent out to the end client. It's got the project information similar to before. It's got my comment, Transmittal with updated drawings in it, and it's got our 3 files that we included. And the links to these now is the links to the documents on the client-facing extranet. So the client can just go in there. If they don't even want to use SharePoint, they can just click on these links, and they can just open or save the document straight down to their own machine. So nice and easy for the clients to use, and a lot less manual work than sending it out all through email. So that really concludes my demo. I'm just going to summarize now by talking quickly about a couple of the benefits that the solution delivered. So we'll just flip back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so what does this approach really give you? Well, we've tried to summarize into kind of 6 key benefits. One of the immediate obvious things that we found at GBM is that it substantially reduced the amount of workflow. It made document control something that was part of people's day-to-day job, of the engineer's part of the day-to-day job, rather than something they had to do in addition. So in addition to kind of actually doing their work. So it reduced their workload, it increased their accuracy. People weren't making mistakes, and I'm sure you can appreciate when you're developing or designing expensive processing plants, mistakes can be very expensive and very risky. So it reduced the risk of user error, it enforces a degree of consistency. It actually assisted them as well in terms of adhering to their document control policies. So because rules are applied automatically, things happen automatically, it became the natural way to work, and it actually assists with things such as ISO 9001 compliance. So a few more benefits to summarize. What we actually find is that it really puts the business in control. So it was always GBM's system. You own it. They can configure it. They can change it as they need to make their own business needs. It's very quick to adapt and change as well. If a process within the business or the organization change, we're not looking at weeks of recoding or waiting for a third-party vendor to release an update that we've got to pay for. They were very often able to go in and make the changes that they want to make themselves within a matter of hours, and be backed up by us if things were a bit more complex. Another thing that they found that was very useful is that having invested in Nintex and SharePoint to do document control and transmittals, they're actually able to look at different business applications within their organization, and there was a whole host of other business processes that could leverage this kind of forms and workflow driven type capability that they were currently managing through email or paper-based processes. It was lower cost than other solutions, such as buying a vendor solution or similarly investing in a lengthy custom development project. And I've already explained the problem with custom code in terms of it being time-consuming, risky, hard to maintain, etc., etc. I'm sure we're all aware of development projects that run into difficulties. So a very nice solution all in all. I just thought I'd summarise the three kind of options we've looked at here. We've talked about choice between coding, buying, or configuring a solution. We've looked at the pros of using tools such as SharePoint 2010 and Nintex to quickly configure your solution, and highlighting again that the example I've shown is an example of an approach. It's not an exact solution. It's very customizable. It's very configurable, and also the way that it helps you to actually stay in control of your own solution, to own it and to make changes yourself quickly and easily if you need to do that. So that really concludes the webinar. Now we have a little bit of time for some questions, which I'd be very happy to take. So I hope that everyone's found that a useful session. So let's switch over now, and if anyone has any questions, you should be able to type them into the GoToWebinar screen. Okay, so let's have our first question. So the question here is how much of the components that you develop for GBM are reusable? The answer is quite a lot, especially around things like the email generation, the copying out to the extranet site, the document numbering type solution. Yes, all of that is inherently reusable. I suspect everyone works in a slightly different way, so it will likely need some tweaking, but yes, absolutely, that can be reused, and we actually have permission from GBM to reuse it as well, so no problems there. Okay, we have another question, which is it possible to integrate this solution with existing line of business applications? So, absolutely. Nintex has got some great capabilities in terms of being able to call web service and integrate with other solutions. If necessary, we can always code small amounts of custom code if you need to integrate with a more perhaps more unusual, more bespoke business application, and that can be slotted into your website. Brian, I don't know if you've anything you'd like to add on that question in terms of is it possible to integrate this solution with existing line of business applications?
Yeah, of course, there's a lot of possibility to do that. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay. Another question that I have is, can we migrate existing content into this solution? Yes, absolutely. So, for example, with GBM that I've been talking about, they had a lot of information on file shares that needed to be migrated in. You may be taking data off file shares, you may be taking data out of perhaps legacy systems. A lot of the work that we at Point Beyond do is concerned with migration of other systems. So yes, it's a matter of simply getting the appropriate documents into the appropriate places in SharePoint with the appropriate metadata. So yes, that can certainly be done. Okay. Do we have any more questions? Oh, I have a couple of questions. Just bear with me. I've lost my questions window. Yeah, here we go. Aha, got it. Does a client have to have Nintex to be able to approve or reject? Does a client have to have Nintex to be able to approve or reject drawings externally when picking up documents from the extranet? So no, the client doesn't have to have Nintex at all. No. So if the client, if you wanted to have the ability for the client to approve or reject the drawings, the client could receive an email, such as the emails that I showed you being sent out, and they can actually just reply. Well, they've got two choices. They can either click on a link, which will take them to the approve reject screen within SharePoint, but they still don't need Nintex to be able to do that. Or they can just simply reply to the email saying approve or reject. And if they do that, then the Nintex will pick that up on the server side. So no, there's no requirement for clients to have Nintex. Next questions. Can AutoCAD drawings be tracked in the same way as a Microsoft document? Yes, they can, but you need to buy CAD connectors for your AutoCAD to make it work with, SharePoint connectors to make it work with AutoCAD. So you need some extra software to plug into your CAD package to make it work with SharePoint. Another question: can it be configured to stamp document numbers with? Can it be configured to stamp documents with revision numbers? Yes, absolutely. And in fact, let me just switch back to the demo. I'm not sure whether we showed this today, but we have like revisions A and B kind of thing here. The solution actually, the full solution for GBM was rather more sophisticated in terms of the way that it generated the revision numbers, and they had quite a sophisticated algorithm for generating the revisions. And yes, we absolutely could stamp those revision numbers onto the documents. Just looking here to see whether that's been copied. No, but yes, you can. So you can have revision A, B, you can have version numbers, you can amalgamate document numbers following your own kind of document numbering system if you'd like to do that. Next question. Does it generate received notifications on behalf of the client? Yes. So if you want to, what you can do is you can require, you can send out an email and you can say require, notify me when the client has read that email, or you can do what GBM in fact do, which is they require their client to actually explicitly reply to the email saying I confirm receipt of this, and the replies to those emails are just go straight into SharePoint, so they're stored in the document library against the transmittal, so you can go in and see that the client has acknowledged receipt. So yes, you can do that, and you can track those within SharePoint. Okay, another question. The webinar title reference document numbering. Can these schemes be data driven? How? Yeah, so I only touched very lightly on document numbering. I think what I'll do is I'll actually look at the document, the transmittals numbering. So yes, when you create your transmittals, you can all your documents, you can absolutely number them as you wish to do so. Can it be data driven in terms of can you pull the numbering data out of other databases, that kind of things? Yes, you can absolutely do that. So there's some very good tools both within SharePoint and also within Nintex for integrating with other sources, other data sources. So if you need to pull your document number or your transmittal number from a separate system or another database, yes, you can absolutely do that. Another question, does this solution provide soft revision and hard revision control? Donna, I'm not actually quite sure. Do you mean like what 1, 2, 3 and revision A, B, C? I think that's what you mean by that. Perhaps we can have a chat to you afterwards about that, because I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, and I don't want to second guess if that's okay. No problem, Donna. We'll be in touch with you. Thanks. I think I know what you mean, but I don't want to risk going off on a tangent. Okay, do we have any more questions? That's been a really good set of questions. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, thank you. No, you're very welcome. Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I hope you found this a useful session, and we hope to speak to you shortly. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time, and goodbye.